in today's video we are going to take a look at one of the highest rated players on the Chinese server playing Nilah jungle. Some of the heaviest and most brutally scaling champions that is basically an auto win once you get to 3, 4 or 5 items. When you complete those items, you will absolutely be able to one-tap anything in front of you, and the only way how you can lose is you getting absolutely blasted before you can attack even once. So for this video, we're going to take a good look at how he's playing this game, how he's maneuvering the champion, and what you need to learn to be the best Nilah player ever. So first off, what do we notice? He starts with a third ability because the first ability's damage to monsters is relatively low, however the cooldown is also relatively low. With his third ability, he has very high damage, and the moment he gets another point into his first ability, he gets a sizable cooldown reduction per auto attack. And here we see him unleash the camp towards the Gromp to make sure that he will just get both hits on both camps at the same time to accelerate his jungle clear. Also, very good to see is how he transitions between camps. Unfortunate little, the issues with recording software nowadays. But so far, pretty decent start. He put 2 points. Come on now, you can do it. He put 2 points into his third ability, which will allow him to clear the jungle faster because his third ability does the most damage and is also the most powerful ability in a sense for playing Nilah, because the lower cooldown on that ability allows the champion to just be way more active during fights and just clearing the jungle. Something that's very interesting to see here is how he keeps his third ability just in case a fight happened, and he just waited very long to use the first charge. And exactly that happens. The enemy is fully all-inning on him, but it wasn't enough. With the power of the second ability and just this overall movement of the third ability, just keeping one stack, he was able to quickly escape. Now he's covering his top laner for a dive, but it just wasn't enough. The Narcissus is getting absolutely ran down. He needs to be very careful. Now gets the cooldown back on his second ability. He has to flash out the pull of the Aatrox second ability, and we see an Ezreal mid lane rotating down here to make sure everything stays in order. The cannon now comes from the left-hand side. He has to immediately turn on them. He gets the kill. The cannon dies to the Ezreal. What a nicely played game. And here's what differentiates the best players from just good players. He noticed that the cannon came from the left side, so he chose to all in on the right side because he needed to put distance between the cannon and him. If he didn't do so, he would have died instantly without being able to do anything, and maybe only the Ezreal would have been able to get one kill. And this way, they got the best of both worlds. And while you're looking at the bottom left side, just quickly talking about runes while we have the time, Conqueror is the most powerful because you stack it so fast and your champion is counted as a melee champion. Collector, in this instance, I guess he just wants to snowball, but if you don't go for sudden impact, it's kind of weird from my perspective. Might as well just go for another item, but in this instance, he goes for Collector into a Cloak of Agility, or Agility, depending on how you want to pronounce it, and the reason is, buying crit on this champion provides you with Armor Pen. And just buying it in this kind of way allows you to deal more damage early and have more sustain, because as you crit, your crits will heal you, and therefore having more crit not only increases your damage dealt, but also increases your survivability. He has a major item spike in his base, has to be very careful. Like, these little pets are so cute, but they're also so annoying. Like, let me know in the comments below what you think about these pets. I think they're unbearable to look at because they just add so much cluttering to your screen. And yeah, just as per usual, Nilah jungle is not very eventful in the early game because most of the things you do is just farming. Farm, and then you hyper carry games. Compared to Kayle, however, this champion is much more fun and has much more impact early on, because this champion can actually defend herself and do something proactively with the power of a third ability and resetting it properly, whereas Kayle just exists and loses basically any invade. And look at how he paths away from potential danger because the enemy popped the vision plant just to make sure nothing can happen to him. Oh, his mid lane dies as well. That's very, very bad. But on the bright side, like, if the enemy were to go for Dragon, it would have been the most beautiful thing for the Nilah, because the Nilah always wants to get Herald. He wants to go, ooh, If he got that kill, it would have been so huge, and with Collector, he probably would have gotten it by just, tapping them. He has to choose for the dragon, even though he doesn't really want the dragon, because he cannot contest the Herald. Like, look at his team. The Nasus died, the midlaner died beforehand, so he has to choose to trade the objective to make sure that the game doesn't completely blow off. What is happening? The game is actually getting blown out of proportion and completely being flipped on its head because the enemy is all-inning properly here onto the Nilah. However, only the Nilah died, which is very, very good for their team, and they got the dragon, so they didn't lose out on multiple fronts, which means in this case the enemy doesn't have the option for a soul anymore, which takes away some mental pressure because people still believe that souls are very impactful from his team. Now we are just simply going back towards farming, and as we get more items, we scale to a point where we finally become a threat for the enemy team. Like right now we are simply not dealing enough damage and we're too squishy. Also, one of the items that's very powerful on Nilah is Death's Dance. Death's Dance on ranged champions is very weak, but Nilah is considered a melee champion, and therefore gains the benefits of the melee item or the melee function of Death's Dance. Which, if you think about this, is very broken on this champion, because if you don't kill this champion fast, this champion will kill you. And by making yourself so much tanky with the power of Death's Dance into a full physical team composition, you basically make it impossible to get bursted because you have multiple layers of defense. You have your second ability, which blocks auto attacks, and you have the damage reduction from Death's Dance, which allow you to live longer, and then reset. Because if you deal damage and take damage and you get a kill, you will get the reset of the Death's Dance and get so much HP. Now we see the Riven going for Nasus all in, but the power of the Wither of Nasus is just unbearable. Like, this champion is so annoying to face, regardless of it being ahead or behind. If you are the recipient of Wither, you will not move, and it feels so unbelievably frustrating, and it's probably one of the most broken abilities, like basic abilities, in WildRift. He's also investing into plated steel caps, which make him even more tanky, because he doesn't really need offensive boost as of this point, but that puts into perspective, like, why isn't he going for Death's Dance in this game instead of GA? I guess he gets it because of Cannon, because Cannon still does a lot of damage to him, but outside of Cannon, there would not be much of a threat. Like, if he has Death's Dance, it's basically impossible for him to die, as I said earlier. And yeah, we are back to farming. He has to carry this game on his back, making sure to scale, and once he has scaled, he can finally make sure to carry his team to victory. So far, so good, but his entire team is already losing. Keep that in mind. His entire team lost on their own in their respective lanes. And the Nasus is getting all in. He has to be very careful. The Ash Arrow comes from the side. The set is collapsing. And the entirety of the enemy team is hiding in the jungle, making it very difficult for the Nilah to play. He needs to be very careful to just soak up the minions to finally scale to a point where he can influence the game. The Riven should be very careful. She can't just mindlessly all in the Nilah, because contrary to public belief, Nilah is an AD carry that can deal with being all in. What did the Lulu just do? I guess she just fat-fingered. Happens, I guess. But yeah, Nilah has so much power with her second ability and overall all her entire kit that assassins need to be really, really careful. Like, if she knows how to auto-attack cancel, you might get instantly killed as you jump her. And again, the only way to reliably kill her is to CC her. If you fail, you will be dead. Yeah, and because they got the first dragon, there's no mental pressure of getting the second dragon, because there's no soul at play. So they can just go for more gold consistently, because it truly doesn't matter anymore. And they really want to collect these shutdowns. Like, if anyone overextends when the enemy is going for dragons, then the Nilah or the team of Nilah can finally cash in on these bounties here and put themselves into a place where they have enough gold to win the game. Because if you think about this, the enemy team getting a dragon is worth a few gold in stats when you consider the regeneration of the dragon, but they are now getting, like, the Nilah is getting a currency which she can instantly convert into something she needs. And that is significantly better than just having a team-wide buff which barely does anything in this game. His team is currently, again, fighting, but given the fact that he has a Lulu on his team and he is still very good in the game with the power spikes he has, he can just go deep into the enemy team, has enough survivability to just not get one-popped. Ooh, he mistimed his second ability, so he took the force of the cannon without mitigating too much damage, but thankfully survives this encounter. He will probably get another turret shutdown here, which is a lot of gold if he's allowed to. There's one person seen on the map with the Riven. The Aatrox is not enough to stop the Nilah from doing what she's doing, and she just steals these things in broad daylight, but the set appears and you just get absolutely slaughtered. The real question is, why is Lulu not sticking around with the Nilah? Because the other members really are not that impactful. Like, the Sivir will not just magically end up carrying the game against these type of champions with the gold she has. It requires Nilah to be the one dealing damage, and once Nilah gets to deal damage in a sense of surviving, they'll auto-win the game. Ezreal in this instance is more of a tickle fiend, if anything. Look at it. Did you just see? I mean, she got quote-unquote lucky by critting so many times, but yeah, this guy also has 254 armor, but Nilah doesn't really care. She really doesn't care. The enemy might be looking at Baron, but maybe they'll also be able to flip Baron here. Or at least gain control. Okay, the enemy cannon is slowly walking up. They can't really flip the smite, because the Aatrox will probably outsmite the Nilah, but they're actually doing it. They're doing it and they're succeeding. The cannon just didn't press ult, doesn't have ult. He presses ult so late. Nice veil, but the Nilah will end up dying. Interesting. And now the Lulu also dies. It's a tragedy. But by them getting Baron, they put themselves into a spot where they got more time. And having a draft that scales very heavily makes it so much easier for the Nilah, if she gets time, to carry in the late game. Baron in this fact would have been the tool for the enemy team to make sure to push the enemy base like completely, because they already got 2 inhibitors. They will just end the game. And without this, with Dinesha being taken away, it's basically too high of a risk to walk into their base. And getting the mid inhibitor is most of the time useless anyway, unless it's the 3rd inhibitor. There's so much gold here, by the way, with all these minions. It's a Hullbreaker Riven. Do you see the damage? It's 412, and it's a Hullbreaker Riven. Do you see the damage? And that's what I mean. If you really get to this point of the game, and she's not even fully scaled yet with a Lulu, then it becomes so difficult to lose unless you lose to minions. Cannon hops in, he hops the wall, everything is fine, the Lulu is being collapsed and being blasted by every single spell, getting absolutely harassed here. Does she have enough time to turn on them? She finally turns on them, uses the second ability, anti-ultimate, gets stunned. Will she be able to clean up? She kills the cannon, kills the Aatrox, kills the set as well, and now the poor enemy Ashe is the only one left standing here, and that will be a quick quadra kill. Well, well, well. Nilah champion. You hate to see it. But they only gained the mid lane inhibitor, they can't finish, the Nexus shield is still there. If the Riven suicides for the wave, everything will be fine. It's the only thing Riven had to do is just get the wave. And if that's done, they can't end, and there are massive waves on both sides of the map. And the Nilah really wants to collect these waves. She wants to get the big item spike and then go back onto the map and collect all these minions, because she also has overgrowth. And with overgrowth, she gains so much more HP, which then it results in her being tankier to not get one-popped by the enemy team. Riven is also face-checking brushes, which you should never do at this point, but it's just a look at this massive wave. Enemy secures the dragon, doesn't matter, it's the second dragon for the enemy team because the Nilah secured the first dragon, so it really doesn't matter. The Nilah will have flash in 35 seconds, which means that the enemy team will instantly die in that time, and she just finds... Yeah, where did you go? Did somebody see Riven? Because I surely don't see her. The Nilah champion gameplay, the one-tapper. Farm, 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 one-tap people, the better Kayle in every single way. And more frustrating to play against, to be honest. There's nothing more frustrating to play against in solo queue than Nilah with an enchanter. She just needs to be careful to not tank Baron, because the Baron debuff might be the key to losing this game. Oh, Ashe, you're not allowed to do this. And now the enemy team has lost the game. They can never ever recuperate from this play. The enemy Aatrox is behind them, and there's another one behind them as well, but they're now able to run down mid lane because the enemy has to recall. They have to be here in time, and they can force this play. And with this play in place, they might even turn around to go for Baron again. Nicely played. Rather than chasing them down, they force the enemy to move to places where they want them to be. They just... Look at the Nilah being very careful of the cannon here, because the cannon can still make or break this entire game, and the Narcissus is, for whatever reason, doing some sketchy stuff. Look at her completely disregarding the camps to just get to Nashor the fastest, and she has the Baron debuff again. Like, it's so devastating to see the highest DPS champion on your team get the Baron debuff, because it's the only way you might lose the Baron, or you might lose the fight when Baron happens. Because compared to League PC in the past, if the Baron aggro transitions to another person, the debuff would disappear from the previous person, but in this game, it stays on all people at the same time until it just wears off naturally. Both inhibitors have respawned, they have Nashor, it's now soon time for the Elder, but somebody has to fix side waves. You need to be really careful to not lose the game randomly because of a big wave in the side lane, so the Nilah fixes the top side around the Elder Dragon, whereas the Ezreal or the Sivir, literally anyone, doesn't matter who, fixes the other waves. Now the Lulu needs to be very careful to just be with the Nilah. As long as she is with the Nilah, there's no way of losing unless you get one tap, which is not possible. She just goes in, pops the second ability, survives, gets the Lulu ult, goes into multiple people, it doesn't matter, she cannot literally die. The Aatrox is in front of her in stasis, runs away, gets away, but the Elder is now there. The Lulu is slowing the Aatrox, but it simply isn't enough to catch up to him. You see, the Nilah is now way too tanky thanks to the power of the Lulu, and nobody can kill her. And with that, the entire game will now end. 2 taps the enemy AD carry, goes deep into the enemy nexus, and just ends the game. Lovely game by the Nilah. And if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, check out the description, and see you soon for more RiftGuides content.